This is August 2020, and I'm greeting you guys all here. So, the teaching tonight is Yahweh is King in a Cosmic Mountain. And you'll see this slide a number of times. I have to warn you, it's a 75 slide show, and so we'll be moving fairly fast. And so anyway, God is King in a Cosmic Mountain, and we're going to get through about we'll get through the whole of this teaching. We're going to end up at the Exodus in to Mount Sinai from Egypt, because that's a big mountain deal. And then next month we'll finish this teaching, and so it's already titled Jesus as Cosmic King and the Battle of Armageddon. And there's some very important issues about the Battle of Armageddon that come into the cosmic mountain terminology and the king terminology. It all sort of dovetails and comes together. So anyway, this we start tonight with a little bit from Psalm 24, that triple Psalm 22, 23, 24, where every little Jewish kid knows this psalm. This one says, who may ascend the mountain of Yahweh, or the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? Well, I'm pretty sure you know the answer to that one. But if you read that psalm, you'll find out more. And then it says, we will see that when the prophets wanted to talk or meet, that's a technical term, that word meet, with God, they went to the mountain. And, some of you guys, from, just your knowledge of the word, know this, that many of the guys did go to the mountain. And here, why is it not going? Okay, so, darn it. There we go. So, I believe the Bible more literally than you do. It's the title of a new book on constructs that I'm writing, or the subtitle is Why I Don't Use Figures of Speech Everywhere, Nor Do I Blame Everything on the Idiom of Permission. And then the final thing here is Bible language is not forced metaphor. That's a theological term, the word forced metaphor. Theologians, mostly evangelical, conservative, fundamentalists, those that actually believe the Bible, they look at the stuff we're going to look at tonight and the stuff that many of you have seen from my teachings in the past, about constructs, and they say, no, it's a forced metaphor. Well, no. I mean, that's just laziness on your part. It's not a forced metaphor. So everybody knows this map of mine that's been building for many years, could be twice this size, because so much of it needs to be I should focus in on certain parts of it, which I do a little bit tonight. This is the biblical conceptualization of the cosmos. I won't get into it. I just put it in here for those of you that needed the PDF. We're going to the next one. So here's the summation as far as I've taken it. I tried to make it what they call the elevator paragraph, the elevator speech of what the cosmic geography is all about. God's throne had its foundations on or in the flood. We'll see that tonight. He oversees the affairs of men from that celestial position, and I've given you references for, if you want the PDF, just write to me, bobwasson@gmail.com. He walks or sits on this vault, okay? Maybe I didn't explain that one too well, but there's a vault over and of heaven, and observes the comings and goings. We are grasshoppers, that's what it says in Isaiah. He spreads out the heavens like a tent and tramples on the heights or the waves of the sea. What sea is that, Bob? Well, he rides upon the highest heaven. He's got a chariot, right? And he, even upon the swift cloud, And I've given you that. Okay, possibly a chariot, certainly a cloud chariot, possibly one pulled by cherubs. And then I say that the children of Israel weren't freaked out by Elijah being picked up by a chariot. So a lot of stuff there, and parts of it I've gone over in the past, parts of it we'll go over tonight. So what does that all mean, Rob? Rob, that this might be a fairly good, I found this image a while ago on the internet when the big flat earth thing was going around. But, biblically, the earth is flat, and this might be a good conceptualization of, from the outside. I mean, nobody in the Hebrew or Christian scriptures could imagine this completely because they couldn't look at it from the outside like, we can of our earth because we've been outside, we've been to the moon, we've been back, we took pictures, it doesn't look like this. But to them, it was flat and there was a dome over it, blah, blah, blah. So there was the underworld, which is that sort of V-shaped thing if it's showing up well. And he hangs it's actually the world on nothing, but I think it's the north on nothing from Isaiah. So, okay, what are constructs, Bob? And in the Bible, what are they? Sun comes up and the sun goes down. Everybody knows that one. Does it come up? No. But visually, it does. Heaven is up and hell is down. Everybody knows that one. The earth has four corners, says so a lot of times. And now here's the other ones we're going to get into. God's a king. Well, does he remain a king? Well, we'll see about that. And he lives in a mountain. Oh, nice, a mountain king. And then Satan is a dragon or a monster. So everybody knows some of this, but they're constructs, the way the Hebrew prophets and the Christian prophets conceived of God. Okay, what are constructs in our worldview? Well, the space-time continuum. And I'm going to get into what a construct is in a minute. Wormholes are a construct for us, a vortex universe or parallel universes. I'm going over this for a purpose, okay? Here's a wormhole. This is the conceptualization. Wormholes, yes, really, Virginia. Has they ever seen one? No. It's a hypothetical connection between two widely separated regions of space-time. And it's a gravitational tunnel, as I've been told. Wormholes were created or are created. So hypothetically, but you won't find many astrophysicists that will disagree with this little statement here. When two entangled black holes are pulled apart, essentially making a shortcut through the universe. This is a thing, folks. And so, it's not real. It's real in their heads. Well, here's the old construct of our universe. It's Ptolemaic, meaning it was before Copernicus, right? This is the biblical actuality of our universe. Where's the sun? Oh, it's not in the middle. Okay, here's the real construct of our universe. It's Copernaum. Try to find that one on the internet. You can't say it's not Capernaum where Jesus lived. It's Copernaum from Copernicus. It's the right one where the sun's in the middle. Okay, Bob, great. So now there's here's an old construct, the edge. It's been there since the beginning. You could really fall off the edge because the earth was what? Flat. And this is a very old photograph. Okay, it's not photo. So here's another conceptualization of our present universe. It's called a vortex universe. The sun is hurtling through space, and the planets are actually revolving or is rotate? No, they're revolving around the sun. There's a great video of this. Here's another picture of how you might conceive of it. See, the sun is, I say the word hurtling. It's not really hurtling. Let me go back one. Is there two? No, there's just the one. But here's the website for anybody who wants it. This thing is awesome. If I had the time to put the video in here, it's really a cool video. But it's a construct. Nobody can prove it. They just, see, a construct is something that's non-empirical. You can't test it. Did the ancient people go out to the ends of the earth, which is another word that's used in Scripture that's literal for them, not for me. The world doesn't have an end. And those old flat earthers back in 2000, whatever, 17, actually there's been a flat earth society since way back. But do they ever go to the edge and see if it's still there? No, they just talk about it. They say, oh, it's in there. Anyway, so let's get into God as King at the beginning and at the end of it all. Tonight, we're probably just going to get in the beginning. The Bible is a game of thrones. Yay, got some little modern stuff. And there's my little dragons, because there's dragons in the books. If you've ever read the books, I read like 5 of them. They're so thick, and George Martin is nothing if not like, Charles Dickens writing David Copperfield. He may not be paid by the word, but OMG, does he write and write and write and write. But anyway, the Bible is a game of thrones, and God's throne is presently in heaven. Everybody, I think, knows the verses. And why is that and not on earth? We're going to get into that tonight. God gave dominion to mankind. And I'll give you a verse here, on earth. The kingdom on earth is not in our hands, but should be. What happened? Jesus says that God's kingdom is in heaven and prayed, thy kingdom come. Or actually, he insisted. It's an imperative in the praying instructions that he gives. So we're going to get into this. Here we go. So how do we get to thy kingdom come? Right smack in the middle of our Bibles, or at least as what we might consider the Gospels as the middle of the history. God, not Jesus, his story. God's, not Jesus's. Come on. We see Jesus of Nazareth proclaiming God's kingdom must come. Must. He is insistent upon it. It wasn't here. In the Lord's Prayer, or as I like to characterize it, it isn't his just a prayer. He's instructing his disciples. So I call it the Lord's praying instructions. Jesus uses the imperative mood, do it. And it's not, may it please come to pass. No, that's usually in the subjunctive mood. Here it's the imperative mood. Most people don't like that in Bible translation land, so they use it, may your kingdom come. If it's okay with you, could it come? No, Jesus is speaking to his disciples, pray like this, thy kingdom come. So you guys know that one. Tonight we start at the beginning, because we're not going to get to the end till next month. God is king at the flood. What flood? It ain't Noah's. Here we go, Psalm 29. Psalm of David, ascribe, that's the word, give it up. For those of you in the 21st century, give it up to the Lord. Really, give is literally the verb where it comes from. Ascribe to the Lord, O sons of the mighty. Now, who are those guys? Sons of the mighty. That's the word El, I believe, in the Hebrew there for mighty. They do that. El is one of the words for God, names of God. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Worship the Lord where? In holy array. They get dressed up. And the voice of the Lord is upon the waters. Now, who's the focus here? The sons of the mighty. So where are we talking about? We're in heaven. Okay? What waters is the Lord, the voice of the Lord on many waters? Well, think Genesis chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. When the Lord said, let there be light. What's the verse 2? There's water everywhere. The God of glory thunders. The Lord is over many waters. Now, that's the Hebrew word Rab Mayim, which Rab should have been translated great. Great waters. We're talking about the great waters. What are the great waters? They're the waters of creation. When God speaks of the entirety of creation, it's not just the heavens and the earth. It's the heavens, the earth, and the sea. The sea is always there. The sea is always there in every ancient Near East custom. And in some regards, the sea is much more important in our focus because so many people don't know about it. In some cultures, I even say this later, Yam, which is the Hebrew, or actually the Canaanite word Yam, which is Hebrew as well. Yam was a god. The sea was a god. And you can see the vestiges of that in Job 38 when God's speaking to the sea directly and says, stop breaking forth. Your waves aren't going to break forth any longer. So anyway, back to Psalm 29. So God's glory thunders, the Lord is over or above the many waters, great waters. The voice of the Lord, there's the voice again, is powerful. Well, yeah, it does things. The voice, third time used, of the Lord is majestic. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. Yes, the Lord breaks in pieces the cedars of Lebanon. They were huge trees, by the way. He makes Lebanon to skip like a calf. Don't know what that means. And Sirion like a young wild ox. The voice of the Lord hews out flames of fire. Has to do with angelic things. The voice of the Lord shakes the wilderness, and it will in the future. The Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh, which is a place where during David's time, who's writing this, it was a big deal. The voice of the Lord makes the deer to calf and strips the forest bare. Here we go. And in his temple, which is in the heavens, everything says glory, especially the sons of the mighty. Eventually, the Lord sat, here we go, as king at the flood. This is the waters. It's called the flood. It's not Noah's because, yes, the Lord sits as king forever or unto the age. The Lord will give strength to his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. So, and that's a seminal context on God as king. He's king in the beginning, okay? You can prove it many ways. We're not going to get into the 7 days of creation proof of his kingship, but in all the cultures of the ancient Near East, creation is equivalent with the kingship of the gods, and specifically, of course, here, Yahweh. Here I give you the context of the waters in Genesis. Now, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was upon the surface of the deep. That's water. Spirit of God was moving on the face of the waters. And, my contention is that verse 2 is so much more important than verse 1 because nobody knows what the waters are. Well, in this teaching context, in doctrine and practice and all that I do, the water is so very important. And what God does with it in day 2 is going to ring your bell. So here's verse 3. This is day 1. Let there be light, so we can see what he's doing. Let's go to the next paragraph. And God said, let there be a vault. It's the word firmament. Some translations have expanse, and that's terrible. The NASB has expanse. That's terrible. It's not an expanse. It's a vault to separate the water from the water. What waters? The waters from verse 2, and we're in verse 6. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it, and it was so. And God called the vault sky. It's the word Shemayim, heaven. He called the vault heaven. It's one of the three. And there was an evening and there was a morning, the second day. And all of you guys know that this is the only day that doesn't say it was good, but it was necessary. Okay, heaven is my throne, Psalm 11:4. So, we're in the if it's David writing, we're in about 1040 BC, and it says here, the Lord is in his holy temple. We saw that in Psalm 29. The Lord's throne is in heaven. Duh, the highest heaven, the third one, by the way. His eyes behold, his eyelids test the sons of men. How do eyelids test the sons of men? I don't know. It's just a Hebrew parallelism there. The Lord tests the righteous and the wicked, and the one who loves violence, his soul hates. Here's another one, Isaiah 66. Thus says the Lord, heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. Where then is a house you could build for me? and where is a place that I may rest? Note the timing, as I said, David 950, really it was closer like to 1,000, and then Isaiah 750 BC. God's throne is not yet on the earth, okay? And that's pretty important, especially here in Isaiah 66, where it'll come up again in Psalm 110 later, which is an eschatological psalm. It's an end time psalm. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. And his footstool is the earth. So Jesus, and we'll find this out later, is a king when God makes his enemies his footstool, and we'll get into that. This is next month and not this month. So let's go to the next slide. Of course, God's chamber is in the waters. And what waters? Yeah, we know what waters. Psalm 104. Bless the Lord, O my soul, the Lord, O Lord my God. You are very great. I like that. You're very great. We like you. You are clothed with splendor and majesty. Can you say king? Yes. Covering yourself with light as with a cloak, stretching out the heavens like a tent curtain. Okay? A few things we want to see here. But he, verse 3, lays the beams of his upper chamber. Why is there an upper chamber? In the waters. He makes the clouds his chariot. We saw a little bit of that. He walks upon the wings of the wind. He makes the winds, it's the word spirits, ruach, his messengers. That's the word amalak, which is angels. He makes his spirits angels, flaming fire, his ministers. You want to find angels in the Bible, look for fire. Okay? He is to think about Sinai coming down. God came down and descended in fire, almost with fire. He established the earth, God did, upon its foundation so that it will not totter forever and ever. You covered it with the deep as with a garment. Sound like Genesis 1:2? It does. The waters were standing above the mountains. At your rebuke they fled. At the sound of your thunder they hurried away. Did we read in Psalm 29? How many times did the word voice come up? Here it is. And did it thunder? Yes, the word thunder was there. So why did Yahweh cover the deep, and why did the waters need rebuke? Well, first of all, the beams of his upper chamber. Okay, I don't know if I can absolutely say this, but there's also a lower chamber. If it says upper, there's a lower. It's the temple, and he's got one on earth, he's got one in heaven. Okay, so what about the cloak? I said king. So let's go to the deep. Why did God cover the deep with a cloak? You'll remember this context because I can't get away with it. I can't get away from it in any of my teachings. Job 38. What are we going to find this time, Bob? The sea had broken out of its prescribed place. It was calm, and it needed to be banded. And I say here's where I say yam in other cultures is the word for sea. And we read here, of course, then the Lord answered to Job out of the whirlwind and said, what the heck? Who are you that darkens counsel, not Job, but others, by words without knowledge? Gird up the loins like a man. Now stand up, maggot, and I will ask you, and you instruct me, because you're so smart, Job. Here's about the earth. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? What's that? That's the 6 days of Genesis. That's founding the earth, okay? Fixing it, laying the beams of the chambers, because they were all kilter, by the way. They became that way. They weren't always that way. When God initially created the heavens, the earth, and the sea, it wasn't a mess. The sea wasn't spilling all over the places. It was peace, love, dove. Okay? Tell me, Job, if you have any understanding. Who set the measurements, or who stretched the line upon it, and what were spaces sunk? We're going to look at that. Or who laid the cornerstones? Look, this is all construct language. The earth doesn't have pillars. It doesn't have a cornerstone. But this is the way they thought, and to them it was true. It's not a forced metaphor. It is not a metaphor. When God founded the earth, and we just read about the stretching forth of the heavens, that's literal. In their minds, the heaven, where the stars are fixed, was made by God. He stretched it forth like a tent. Let's read that a little later. So, when did this happen? Verse 7, when the morning stars sang together. Stars are angels. And all the sons of God, angels, shouted for joy. It's a parallelism in the Hebrew. But here's the part we really want to see, because why did this, what happened? Okay, or who enclosed the sea? That would be me, Job, with doors, when bursting forth it, the sea, went out from the womb. Right? All you ladies can, attest, those that have had babies. This is the water that broke. This is the image. This is an image, okay? When I made the cloud, what? Its garment, okay? And the thick darkness, it's the sea's swaddling bands. So that's why we read about the cloak in that other psalm. And I placed boundaries on the sea, set a bolt and a door, and said, look, Mr. Sea, that's as far as you're going. That's as far as you shall come, and no further, and here your proud waves will stop. This is a little bit of, this is very interesting. We call it a polemic in the business and theology. You'll see the prophet that wrote Job and the prophet later that wrote Isaiah, we think. They stick it to the ancient Near East cultures that had the sea as God, because he wasn't a God. It was a construct of, how things operated in the ancient Near East. But to skewer those godless cultures, if you will, I don't like the word pagan or secular. I mean, they had their gods. They were very spiritual. But to stick it to those guys, Job's writer has Yahweh talking to the sea and saying, shut up and go to your corner, basically. So let's go on. God's throne and the water. So we're going to look a little bit more. Revelation 4:1. This is even later, where John the Revelator can see this same water in his visions. After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. The first voice which I heard, like the sound of a trumpet. That's it. You hear trumpets in the word, and there's nobody blowing them. Angels, okay? Angels. Just watch your context. Anyway, I heard a voice like the sound of a trumpet speaking with me. This happens at Sinai too, and it said, "Come up here, get up here." So where was John initially? He was on the earth, and I will show you what must take place after these things. Immediately, I was in the Spirit. How do you come up to heaven? Well, you don't get there physically. Okay? When 2 Corinthians 12 states that, Paul was caught away to the third heaven. That's this, okay? And one, so what did I do? Immediately I was in the Spirit, and a throne standing in heaven, and one, not three, one sitting on the throne. And he who was sitting was like jasper stone, like the sardis in appearance. And there was a rainbow, love it, around the throne, like an emerald in appearance. Around the throne there were 24 thrones. And upon the thrones I saw 24 elders. I think that's the word presbyter, overseers, but I don't know. Somebody can tell me. And they were clothed in white. Yeah, that's what happens when you got angels. They always come with white. And they had gold crowns on their heads. Yeah, you'll see that too. Bronze, gold, light, flame, whiteness, okay? Out from the throne, the big one, came flashes of lightning. This is the big angel. This is God. Okay, flashes of lightning, which is also in Psalm 18, God comes with lightning. He throws it, and then there were peals of thunder. That's what we just read in Psalm 28, and I believe it was a Psalm 11, that thunder and lightning are associated with God. That's what they thought. That's what they believed, okay? It was true for them. And, okay, so when there were 7 flashes of light and peals of thunder, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne. They were what? Angels. 7 spirits of God. Because what were lamps? Brightness. And before the throne there was something like a sea of glass, like crystal. And in the center and around the throne, 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and behind. Kind of sounds like Ezekiel chapter 1, where the same kind of thing occurred. A lot of God, a lot of spirits, a lot of eyes, right? So, just giving you a picture here of what it's like if you're in heaven looking down, okay? You see, John the Revelator sees a sea like crystal. Okay, let's go to Ezekiel because that's pretty darn important because both contexts speak to the same firmament. So here we are. I'm not sure if I picked the right picture. I was having trouble seeing it because it's in black and white, but God's throne and the crystal sea and the firmament. So Ezekiel 1, 22, 23, spread out above the heads. Okay, before these verses, you got that description of the wheel within a wheel and the creatures in there on the 4 corners and they go this way and that, and where they go, he goes, and where this goes, that goes, and their eyes all around. So it's an eschatological mind picture, just like we have in the book of Revelation. But we get to verse 22, spread out above the heads of the living creatures was what looked like something like a vault. Think sparkling like crystal and awesome. How many times do you get to use the word awesome in the Bible? Okay, under the vault, their wings were stretched out one toward another, and each had 2 wings covering its body. I'm not going to get into anything about the chariot, if you will, in Ezekiel, but we're focused on looking up, and here's what the conceptualization of what Ezekiel was writing about. He was on earth. John was in heaven. So, pardon me. So this biosphere picture gives you an idea again of what, again, we're on the outside, but they were only on the inside, but they saw the crystal sea looking up, and there I have my little, it's not moving. It's supposed to move if I'm in slide mode, but it's Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel. So that was my little, it's a GIF moving picture, and it will, Paul, show that way when you get the PowerPoint. So this modern conceptualization of the biblical model of their cosmos from the outside, we see Ezekiel, little blue man there, he's looking up at the chariot, and he's also seeing beyond the chariot, as it said, over their wings. I couldn't draw all the cherubim in there. He saw a sea like crystal. And here's even this is even better. Oh, it's moving here. How come it didn't move in the other one? All my water is moving. The little wheel within a wheel is moving. There's clouds there. There's God on his throne above the firmament with his upper chamber in the waters. The clouds obscure his throne. That's something from Job 22. And the prophet who wrote, there he is walking on land, and the circle on the face of the great deep, that's from Proverbs 8. When God looks down, there's a better picture. There it is. When God looks down, he looks at the circle of the earth, because that's the conceptualization of all the prophets. These are constructs, folks. Are they real? No. The world is a globe. We know that. But for them, it was absolutely true. Okay? Isaiah 4, have you not known? Have you not heard? Hath it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth. How many times is that come up to me? It is he that sits upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are grasshoppers. He stretched out the heavens as a curtain and spreads them out as a tent to dwell in. Who's dwelling in that tent? We are. He sees the earth as a circle, okay? Here, I'm going to give you, this is going to be fun. Back in 1888, I believe, a French astronomer named Flammarion did a woodcut, or found this illustration for his book on astronomy. Now, this is the 1800s. He explained it that this was not their conceptualization, because by 1800 they knew that Magellan had circumnavigated the globe. They knew it was a globe, but he said this is what they thought a few hundred years previous to his life. And it shows a dude, you have to love this, he's sticking his head outside the firmament. This is from a woodcut. The stars, you see that the stars are in that firmament. That's totally biblical. This is so biblical, but it's funny because it's in 1888, and this is a French astronomer saying, this is where we've come from. Okay, let's see. They said, well, I don't even know what I'm saying here. The missionary of the Middle Ages tells that he had found the point where that's the guy. Okay, I thought a better picture was this one, because you can print this thing out, but everybody colors it in, so I thought it was nice that you could color it in. You see Ezekiel's wheel up there on the left top? It's wrongly placed. It's supposed to be on the inside of the firmament. So whoever actually did the woodcut, even though I can't even imagine doing it in relief. Some of you guys, Chrissy, that are artists, and this is in relief, right? This is not, you draw it out. This is in negative in a piece of wood, and you print this out. It's fabulous. You can Google this, Flammarion woodcut. You can find out a little bit more about it. But the idea that a few hundred years before 1888, when Flammarion wrote this, here's the picture of what they believed, that you could actually stick your head out and get outside the firmament. So enough of that. Yeah, let's go to the kingship on earth. So many of you know this. I'm going to go quickly, and those that are watching the video in the future can slow the video down and read stuff. And Rob, I'm going to ask you to read these because I've got to get my eyes a little bit rest. So here's the first one in Genesis 1:26 through 28. God gave them rule, dominion over the earth. Rob, would you read that?
Sure. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over everything that creeps on the earth." God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it." You have it underlined. "And rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth."
Yeah, I did underline that subdue, and we do see also that the rule over is underlined because God gave to mankind kingship on the planet. We'll get into Hebrews 1 and 2 probably next month, but it says that God made man a little lower than the angels. It says that in the Christian scriptures. In the Hebrew, it says he made them a little lower than the Elohim, the little GODSs, basically saying that, the earth was humans, but they're underneath the angels. But you got to look at the word subdue here just because it comes up. Why in chapter 1 of Genesis are you subduing the earth? What happened? It was tohu vabohu. It was a wreck. and it needed to be subdued. So that's another little proof text, I guess. So kingship initially given to mankind. We know from Luke 4 what occurred. So we know that, I didn't put it in here, the disobedience of our forebears gave that kingship to the devil. Okay, and here's the proof of it. Rob, if you would.
Luke chapter 4, verse 1. And Jesus, being full of the Holy Ghost, returned from Jordan, and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being 40 days tempted of the devil. And in those days he did eat nothing. And when they were ended, he afterward hungered. And the devil said to him, If thou be the Son of God, command this stone that it be made bread. And Jesus answered him, saying, It is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of God. And the devil, taking him up into an high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, All this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will, I give it.
So he tries to trick Jesus into, getting a kingdom. And Jesus doesn't deny it. If you read the whole context, he knows who's got the kingship of the earth at this time, even during his lifetime. It is the devil, the dragon, who is Satan. You name it, he's got the name. A couple of things in here that are also related to constructs, of course, and a powerful spiritual being, and don't you ever forget it, the only begotten Son of God is being talked to by the devil. And then he takes him up to a very high mountain and shows him all the kingdoms of the world. You can't do that if you think the Bible, if you think the earth is a globe. You can't get high, you can't get far enough away over New York to see Australia. So bringing up to a very high mountain conceptually works for the ancient Near East, doesn't work for us. It was very true. Scripture is inspired. It's a true, everything in it is true to those to whom it was addressed. And so it's amazing here, though, that God shows us this in the writings, that Jesus doesn't deny that the devil has the kingdom and that he can give it. But this was a trick. Jesus didn't fall for it. So in Matthew 6, we won't read this. He acknowledges that the kingdom of God is not on earth. It's in heaven. I highlighted it down there. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So God's kingdom presently is in heaven, and earth is his footstool. It really all fits biblically. So the kingdom was meant for mankind, right? I said we get to Hebrews. Rob, would you read this one?
Sure. Hebrews 2, 3 through 9. For he did not subject to angels the world to come, concerning which we are speaking. But one has testified somewhere, saying, What is man that you remember him, or the son of man that you are concerned about him? You have made him for a little while lower than the angels. You have crowned him with glory and honor, and have appointed him over the works of your hands. You have put all things in subjection under his feet. For in subjecting all things to him, he left nothing that is not subject to him. But now we do not yet see all things subjected to him. And then verse 9, but we do see him who was made for a little while lower than the angels, namely Jesus, because of the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, so that by the grace of God he might taste death for everyone.
So this is a broad panoramic of the hierarchy. Mankind, we saw that in Genesis, which this is just another vision of it, was made a little lower than the angels. But here's something that it's not forever, okay? We do not yet today, or in Hebrews when it was written, see all things subject to mankind, which they will be. And you see this. I mean, we're lower than the angels, but and we can't see that we're crowned yet because things aren't subject to humanity yet. And the Jesus being crowned with glory and honor, he's not on the planet yet either. So even though we are going to be crowned with glory and honor, and Jesus may even be crowned with glory and honor, he hasn't brought the kingdom to earth yet. And he has to do that. That's the plan. That's the prospect. That's got to happen before God can come back. Okay? Because God separated himself from the planet with the firmament. His throne is in the waters above the firmament. That's the mind picture you have to have. And Jesus, look, Jesus was a man, right? Mankind sinned, so man has to die. Mankind also gave up the kingdom, so mankind has to bring the kingdom back. It's so symmetrical. So the next slide says, the psalm from which that was quoted, I put it in here just for people's reading pleasure. I'm not going to read it tonight, but everything is the same, okay? I did highlight that, for a little while, verse 5, you've made him a little lower than God. It's the word Elohim. It's the word little G-O-D-S's. Elohim can be God the Father, or it can be God, the other gods. It's just you have to read carefully because the interpretation, of course, in Hebrews is we've been made a little lower than the angels. That fits with the little G-O-D-S's. It's what the Septuagint, which is from whence Paul is quoting in Hebrews, has the word angels as well. So the kingdom, when Jesus comes back, the sheep have it. I'll read this in Matthew 25. But when the Son of Man comes in his glory, which we'll get into next month, and all the angels with him, we'll get into that next month, then he will sit on his glorious throne. We'll get into that next month. All the nations will be gathered before him, that's Jesus, and he will separate from one from another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Don't want to be a left-handed goat. Then the king will say to those on his right, who's the king? Jesus. Come, you who are blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. That sort of fits with Genesis 1 and Psalm 8 and Hebrews 11. That's when it happens, okay? That's when they're no longer lower than the gods. And it actually says part of the secret is we will judge the angels. Doesn't say that anywhere in the Hebrew scriptures. That they didn't know about. If they'd have known that one, they would have never crucified the Lord of glory. I'm just saying. The cosmic mountain. Finally, Bob. What time is it? Freaking 9 o'clock. Bob's finally gotten to the cosmic. Well, we had to get to the king, and we had to understand where the king was and why the king isn't on earth, and a little bit about the king, the cosmic king coming. But now we can go a little bit into the cosmic mountain. What? Here we go. I'm going to say that you're not allowed to put your head in the sand. This is some of my favorite slides from No More Sea. Okay, I know some of this stuff is tough to grasp. Those of you that think the Bible was perfect for the original written people and perfect for us today. It's perfect, but you have to understand to whom it's addressed. And you can't just hide your head in the sand and say, oh, it's a figure of speech. It's a forced metaphor. No, it's not. When you read in Psalm 18 that David said the Lord descends and he's mad and he's throwing lightning, that's what they thought would happen if he did come down. Okay, and I'm not going to allow you to check your brain at the door, okay? This is the supernatural stuff. That's the movie. And you may not do that because it makes this stuff really is going to make too much sense for you. Really is, okay? Oh, okay, so Ron. Here we go. We can't have foot and mouth disease either when we're talking about God. We have to let the word speak. We have to let Scripture speak and, amend our thinking to it so that we are not tricked, okay? We don't make everything a figure of speech. We don't make everything an idiom of permission, and we don't say that the biblical earth was round, and we don't make Leviathan a dinosaur that breathed fire. We don't have, what's the other stuff that young earth creationists have? I am not a young earth creationist. Oh, that God had to create starlight in transit so that it appeared that the earth was old. Not that it was, because, oh no, it's only about 5 or 6, maybe 10,000 years old. No, it's not. God created the universe and stars in the instant, but we're not going there tonight. So, Cosmic Geography 102. This is some of the stuff so many of you know. The biblical earth is flat, okay? The earth is covered with a dome. We've seen that. God lives on a mountain. We're going to see that. God lives above the dome. We did see that. Sits on a throne. There is a cosmic ocean above the dome, and that mountains poke through the dome. What? That's where we're going. The idea, a construct. I finally gave you the definition of a construct. The idea or theory containing various conceptual elements, typically one considered to be subjective and not based on empirical evidence. The ancients saw the sky. They saw the clouds going across the sky. They saw the stars in the sky. Just change that word to the word heaven. They saw the stars in heaven, in the firmament. Okay. What do we need to know here? Modern cosmology usually formed around the Big Bang and string theory, quantum mechanics and astrophysics. Can you prove the Big Bang? No. It's a construct. It does. There are some evidences of it, but you can't run time back and see. Okay, wormholes, blah, blah, blah. Every religion has theories about the beginning and end of everything. For us, we look at the Christian and Hebrew scriptures to find our way. There is an ancient observational astronomy in our study as contrasted with the modern space-time continuum and speculation like parallel universes, wormholes. All cultures surrounding and including Israel looked at their world in the ancient way in which we're studying tonight, and I've studied for years and shown you for years. He's not duplicitous. God is not duplicitous, and he's not delicious either. He doesn't try to trick us or hide things. The Bible can be taken literally. In trying to understand the ancient Near East cosmology, the reader has to understand to whom it's written, right? The earth is flat down at the bottom. The notion continued with Columbus and his ilk until Ferdinand Magellan circumnavigated the globe. They also thought the earth was the center of the universe until Copernicus. I can't remember the date. And then, of course, Galileo, and finally we got it straight because we went up there or we observed with telescopes. Did Adam have a telescope? No. He looked, he saw, he didn't. Did he go to the ends of the earth? No. He had crops to tend. Did he take off and try to find the ends of the earth? No. All right, we'll get into mountains either. Did they go up mountains a lot? Not really. Mountains were not, they didn't all have knapsacks and hiking shoes. Okay. God is not duplicitous. I already went through this. Okay, so be patient about all of this. Here's the middle paragraph. Hell may not literally be below the earth, but that doesn't make it not true for the prophets who wrote, because that's what they thought. When the children of Korah were swallowed up at Mount Sinai, they went down to Sheol. They went to hell because the earthquake opened up a crack in the earth and then closed up on it. Okay. Okay, no space kind. God didn't shove the prophet's hand across the pages and cause him to write about the modern quantum mechanics. Just stop with that stuff. That's possession. Okay, that's possession. That's demonology. God doesn't operate that. He had to have willing subjects, and he had. You know what? He had to work with what he had. If he had written scripture today, space-time continuum would be on the plate. You know? Okay, so here we go. Again, here's the picture, right? Samuel, foundations of heaven, the biosphere. Why did I put this in here? I kind of just put this stuff in here because I want you to get back into thinking about how they thought. Okay? Here, if we were to bring the biblical worldview into 21st century, this would be one of the four quarters of the planet and the guy throwing a baseball off of it. Does that occur? No. So all those flat earthers, here's the flat earth too, right? And they're Snowy. Everybody knows who Snowy is from Tintin. The dog, Snowy. Sorry, those of you who know Tintin. Okay. Did you think that the modern prophets thought about their universe this way? No, they did not. But they did see stars in the firmament. Just read Psalm 19. Okay, Psalm 19 is amazing. A tent, a tabernacle for the sun. You think that was just figurative language? No, God made a tent for the sun. That's what the firmament is. Okay, there's a dome. Okay, we know the dome. Why did I stick this one in here? Oh, I just gave it for your viewing pleasure, and for those of you that want the PDF at the end, you can have these things because they're kind of important. Day 2 was not good; it was necessary. Here, remember the Truman Show? And I've been through this a number of times, and we're getting to the cosmic mountain. I promise, because the mountain makes really important sense. The Truman Show. He lived in the biblical world. Okay, his sailboat at the end poked through the firmament. Halfway through the movie, one of the stars falls, and it's a light, and the name of the star is written on the light. It's one of those big, huge Klieg lights that falls, almost kills him. Oh, it's great stuff. Great stuff. I gave you this for the evidence of a tent-like structure. Job, thou hast made an expanse. It's the word rocky. Oh, it's the verb form of rakia, which is to firmament something, to make a firmament. Thou hast made a firmament with him for the clouds, strong as a hard mirror. I didn't write this stuff. This is Job. And then Amos 9:6, the one who builds his upper chambers in the heavens, we saw that, and has founded his vaulted dome over the earth. He who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out on the face of the earth. The Lord is his name. What happened in Noah's flood? Windows of heaven. Where are the windows? In the firmament. All the water comes down from above. Well, there were the fountains of the great deep, but if you understand the biblical deep, it was under the earth and could send. It was all around, as you saw my little biosphere with all that water all around. Water could come up from the bottom as well as the windows of heaven from the top. And now we get to the mountains. They touch the sky, right? No, they don't. They go through it. Biblically, we've seen how Ezekiel looked at the firmament. Let's look at the Tower of Babel, because that's the first evidence that we have that you could possibly go through the firmament. It's a picture, I know, but it's a really interesting picture. The Tower of Babel. What did they want to do in Babel? They wanted to reach to heaven. Which heaven do you think that might have been? The firmament. They thought, here's a few other little tidbits about the Tower of Babel. We're not going to go through everything there, but the tower was built in Babel. There are no mountains anywhere near Babylon. if you go back and you look, I did this myself this week. There's nothing. There's no mountains in that area. They knew about getting to heaven and talking to the gods, in this case, Nimrod and his godless society. They wanted to go up and duke it out with him because God had just you have to read the record. Okay, the Tower of Babel. Now this guy who painted this, or it might be a lithograph, I can't remember, but Gustav Dor has some fabulous biblical. This guy must have been tapped in, because here are the clouds, okay, and then I show the little circle there that shows you where it pokes through the firmament. We're getting here. I'm just giving you this construct ahead of time, okay? To understand the Tower of Babel, yeah, biblically we know the third heavens, blah blah blah. We're looking a bit on, the firmament, but we also realize that the third heaven, number 3, God lives the most high. Glory to God in the highest heaven. Okay, so the firmament is, they wanted to poke through the firmament. Did God let them? No. The arrogant sons of bees, they become scattered. Okay, the heavens are not chronological. For those of you who are former Bullinger thinkers, they are, for lack of a better term, vertically. The heaven, number 1, where the birds fly. Number 2, the firmament itself. And number 3, the highest. Okay, that's why there's the word highest. You got to have at least 3, right? You can have higher, but if you have highest, it's at least 3. Spreading or stretching forth of the heavens. Here's a couple. Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. Oh, we get to read it. And the firmament shows his handiwork. How so? With the stars. Day unto day uttereth speech. What utters speech? The constellations. And night to night shows knowledge. There's no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth. What has lines? The constellations are put together with lines, folks. Okay, in their head. Are they in the sky? No. And their words to the end of the world. In them, the heavens, he hath set a tabernacle, a tent for the sun. Job 9:8. Who alone, God, stretches out the heavens and tramples down the waves of the sea. We're getting it. Isaiah 40:22, we've read it. He who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are grasshoppers. We read this. Who stretches out the heavens like a curtain, spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. Who's dwelling in it? We are, or the prophet was. Pillars of the heavens. We won't get into this too much, okay? But there's one little section in here. They imagined that the edge of the world, the mountains, were the pillars of heaven. They held up the dome, if you will. He stretches out the north over an empty space. We'll get into that in a little bit, and hangs the earth on nothing. He wraps up the waters in his clouds. Their meteorological understanding was, at least they understood that the waters were in clouds, but they also, there's a lot of water in those clouds, and the cloud does not burst under them. Why does he say that? Well, because, the waters of Noah's flood came from there, and they devastated the earth as well. So he obscures the face of the throne. I've given you the Hebrew word there, crossed out full moon. He obscures the face of the throne and spreads his clouds over it. Okay, that's from the inside. He has inscribed a circle on the surface of the waters. What waters? Those of the deep, at the boundary of light and darkness. The pillars of heaven tremble and are amazed at his rebuke. When do you think that might have happened? When the Spirit of God moved across the face of the waters and he founded the earth. He drilled those foundations down with a crane. No, he didn't. But he trembled the earth to do it. Okay? Now you'll get the context here, verse 12. He quieted the sea with his power. And by his understanding, he shattered Rahab. Who's Rahab? That's the arrogant one. That's the dragon. Okay? There's other verses in scriptures that tell you the Rahab is the dragon, not just, what's Bob saying? No, I've shown you this, so I'm not going to go over it again. Okay, by his breath, that's the word ruach, spirit, the heavens are cleared. What was cleared? Why did he have to clear the heavens? Because there was a thick darkness, a swaddling band over the sea. So God's spirit, just like in Genesis 1:2, his spirit, verse 13 here, the heavens are cleared. Duh. If that doesn't show you how let there be light happened, I don't know what can. I can't go any further. Okay, but his hand has pierced the fleeing serpent. That's Rahab. That's a parallelism there. Verse 12 is parallel with verse 13 in the Hebrew. Behold, these are the fringes of his ways, and how faint a word we hear of him. But his mighty thunder, who can understand? I have to say that too. By what faint word we hear today in the churches, that there was a dragon on the loose, wrecked the waters of creation. God had to fix the waters, shatter the dude, and put him in his place. You just don't. Okay, God in his throne, clouds beneath him. I thought this was a great little picture. Is this the one? I can't tell. Where he's got lightning in his hand? I don't know. It's just a conceptualization. It's just a picture of what the biblical throne was like. The clouds were under his feet. Okay. Who else lived on a mountaintop? We did read that God lived in a mountain. That was like the first slide. Who shall ascend to the mountain of the Lord, and who shall come to his temple? I think it said first slide. So who else sits on a mountain? Well, Mount Olympus. That's Zeus. And how about Odin? Where was he? I can't remember the mountain in Scandinavian, but they're both. That's where they get the concept. The Bible. We call that mythology, right? Well, that's where you get screwed up when you say, oh, that's a myth. Well, not really. It's the Bible. And you want to call it mythic language, yeah, that's fine, because it's not true today. And if that's what you mean by myth, fine. But everybody thought this way in the ancient world, okay? Everybody. And what's Odin? I say he's the All-Father. Duh. Who did he have around him? Valkyrie. They went out and did stuff. Women, angels. It's not far-fetched, by the way. So here it is again. I told you I used this slide a bunch of times. What did I emphasize here? The cosmic mountain. This is from Isaiah 14, where Lucifer in the end times does this. I shall climb high above the clouds. I shall rival the Most High. I shall be like the Most High. The other part of that verse is, I shall lift my throne above the stars of God. We won't get into it tonight, I don't know. Well, maybe we will. The Ezekiel record in 28 also paralleled with Isaiah 14, the Lucifer record, where in Ezekiel, in the beginning, he is called the covering cherub. He gets thrown out of the mountain of God. That it doesn't say that he immediately gets thrown to the earth. It just says he gets thrown out of the mountain of God. And then in Isaiah 14, he wants to ascend to the Mount of Assembly, and he wants to get back to the council, right? Because the top of the mountain, the cosmic mountain, is where the council meets in the mind of the ancients. Clouds are just another thing that you have to deal with. I might do a night on the clouds because they're pretty awesome. Here we go again. Boundaries of light and darkness. We read that a few slides earlier. That's the left and right, where the sun comes up and the sun goes down. Does it happen that way? Well, for the ancients it did. God's sitting on his throne. Okay, Bob, I'm done with it. You've convinced me, right? Okay. Why do we have pyramids and ziggurats on the planet? Because they emulate the mountain of God. At the top of most pyramids. I know the Pyramid of Giza here has no top, okay? I'm going to go one more slide and show you. This is the Chinese model, has no top. Why? Go back to the Pyramid of Giza. That's where God sat. You can't sit on a point. You have to sit. Pyramids, and what was the Tower of Babel, they say in scholarly circles? You can't prove it. They say it's a ziggurat. A ziggurat is just another word or form of a pyramid shape, okay? And, well, we'll just keep going. I just throw these in here because they're important for you to know. Pyramids are everywhere. And everybody thought that there was a way to talk to God if you got to the top of the pyramid, or if you got to the top of the mountain. Why did slide 60. Why did God have Moses come up on Mount Sinai? Because he came down and met him there. Look at it. So there's the pyramids. You can add these for your folders, whatever. Oh, and here's another one. This is Mayan, I think. See, it's flat on the top. It's not a point. Everybody makes it a point, but it's not. So earth to be eaten. Why? Can you say subdue the earth did not happen? Yeah. The king is coming. Mountains will be made low. A little bit of this. We're doing most of this next month, and we're running out of time. We're at slide 60. We have 15 more to go, and we're just about there. Okay, so Eden, I've shown this in the past. Eden, the confluence of the four rivers, is kind of where my circle is in southwestern Turkey, I believe, north of Babylon. And it's conceptually, it's the north. We're going to get into this. Okay, Eden, the garden, was in or on the mountain. Where does it say that? In Ezekiel, the anointed cherub in the beginning. You were in Eden, dude, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, the ruby, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the this, the that. We read that in Revelation. Same scene. And the gold, the workmanship of your settings and sockets was in you on the day that you were created. They were prepared, okay? You were the anointed cherub. There it is, who covering cherub or guards. And I placed you there, where in the garden you were on the holy mountain of God. You walked among the stones, or in the midst of the stones of fire. Okay? And here's the other reference. Of course, everybody knows it. The river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. Ah, it's another garden. That's not Eden. That's a thing. That's a thing. And from there, divided and became four rivers. That's why, I'll go back to that map, that's where we conceptually think Eden was. And there's some evidence in the rest of the word. Don't have time tonight. But it was the mountain of God, or at least near the mountain of God, because that's where the anointed or the covering cherub who fell out of the mountain was. I don't even think I go into that, do I? No. But just so you know where we're going to go next month, Isaiah 51. Listen to me. Listen to me. You who pursue righteousness, you who seek the Lord, look to the rock from which you were hewn and to the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah, who gave birth to you in pain, by the way, when he was but one, that's Abraham, and I called him and I blessed him and multiplied him. Indeed, the Lord will comfort, this is in the future, Zion. That's a big theme. He will comfort all her waste places and her wilderness. He will make like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. That's parallelism. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and the sound of melody. So we say, yeah, when Jesus comes back, and when God comes back to the planet, it's paradise regained. And that has a lot to do with the mountain of God, by the way, in the end times, where Micah chapter 4 and Isaiah chapter 2 says the mountain of the Lord will be chief of the mountains. So the cosmic mountain, just a little bit more detail to end this session tonight, because I've given you a whole bunch of stuff to chew on. Here we go with the picture again. This guy must have taken a pretty good photograph. The Psalm 42 is what I quote here, okay? I say, beautiful for situation, or literally in elevation, is the joy of the whole earth. It's Mount Zion on the sides or recesses, in the recesses of the north, the city of the great king. So we have, it's a mountain, okay, Mount Zion, and it's the city of the great king. So you see how the prophet, and you can read this over and over and over again, that Mount Zion is the city of the great king. It's the mother of us all. I did a teaching, and I've asked Paul to put it up as soon as he can on the YouTube channel, called Zion, Eden, and the Mountain of God. And it's quite descriptive of Mount Zion and what it is eschatologically, what it is, how it became what it is. It's, you know, I say this often, if you were to read Genesis 3:15, where it's talking about the coming of the seed of the woman, and it's going to crush his head, and he's going to crush your heel, or you're going to crush his heel, he's going to, yeah, no, the verse. I'm doing the Joe Biden thing here. The seed of the woman's coming. It's Christ. We know that from Galatians. But you don't know that, all that stuff, just by reading one verse. Well, Zion, you read Mount Zion, you got to know where Zion came from. It came from King David when he destroyed the Jebusite citadel on the mountain in Jerusalem, and it became the city of the king, David's city. The city of David, city of the king. It's paralleled here with Mount Zion. I think we're going to get into that some other time, but it is in that teaching, Zion, Eden, and the mountain of God. 48, we read this, most of this, yeah, with Mount Zion on the north side, right, city of our God in his home. Oh, no, he didn't. Great is Yahweh, the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in his holy mountain. Beautiful in elevation. This part we did with Mount Zion on the north side, the city of the great king, and blah, blah, blah. Down at the bottom, verse 9, we have thought about your loving kindness, O God, in the midst of your temple. And then you can read the rest of it. Verse 11, let Mount Zion be glad. Let the daughters of Judah rejoice because of your judgments. This is the physical Zion, okay? You can read the context for yourself. There was a Zion on earth. It became the city of David. And there's a Zion in heaven. It has to do with the mirrored images, the types, if you will, of what's going on earth is going on in heaven. And what we want is the kingdom of God to be on earth like it is in heaven. And right now, that's the missing piece of the puzzle, okay? Because Jesus has redeemed us, okay? We have been saved from our sins. That part, the man part, that's done. The spiritual part, who's got the kingdom? Button, who's got the button? Lucifer. That part's not done yet. That's why the purpose of God sending Jesus was to destroy the works of the devil. He's got to do that before the kingdom can come. We'll get into that. Okay, so the far north, there's a few places. I've given this to you because I thought it was important, just different translations of Zaphon. Okay, north, that's the Hebrew word for north. Okay, Psalm 48, beautiful in situation. The next is beautiful in beauty, towering in beauty, beautiful in elevation, beautiful in loftiness. The sense of the Hebrew word is the heights, if you will. And Mount Zion in the sides of the north. The word north is Zaphon, and here's going to be getting to the end here, a really cool thing that Isaiah did. Okay, Ugaritic, or Ugaritic, as many people say. is a city that was unearthed in 1928-29. A farmer dug up hundreds and hundreds of cuneiform tablets in this city, which is in northern Syria, north of Jerusalem. And there's a lot of stuff written in there that have helped us understand the Bible. One of the biggest things is this right here. I'm giving you the Hebrew here for the Psalm 48. Yarekti Zaphon, heights of the north. This term is used in the Baal epic out of Ugaritic, okay? And then the other one is Bir Yarekti Zaphon. That's in Isaiah. I will lift my throne above the stars of God, Mount of Assembly in the heights of the north, okay? This is the exact term that's used in Ugaritic for the north. And the reason that Isaiah writes about the cosmic mountain being in the north, and that the psalmist in 48 writes about beautiful in elevation is Mount Zion in the heights of the north. You know, Mount Zion is the mountain of God. It's in the north. And what did I do? Oh, I gave you the position of Ugaritic. It's directly north of Jerusalem. But what Isaiah did is he's shoving the real God in the face of the false God shown at Ugaritic and elsewhere in ancient Near East literature. He takes, in the Baal epic, if you read it, Baal dies. Lovely, have your God die. Well, you know, in Isaiah, God's not dead. But Syria's Mount Zaphon, that's a place. It's a real place. It's a very high mountain in north Syria. Okay, the mountain of God is at the confluence of the rivers. I've shown you that. Remember so in the Ugaritic history, quote unquote myth, Baal dies, but Yahweh's alive and working salvation in the midst of the earth. Isaiah had to have known about that story. You know, Ugaritic is from about 1200 BC, and Isaiah wrote in about 750. To have the exact same verbiage, there's a lot more to it. Google the Ugaritic Baal epic and read about the stuff that comes out of the Baal epic that informs us as to why Isaiah took it and made it about the real God. It's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. So the cosmic mountain, another thing about it, and we're like very close, second to the last slide, this is anticipation for next month. Okay, folks? We've gotten a little bit about the cosmic mountain. I've told you I think it sticks through the firmament. I've shown that the Tower of Babel was the first quote-unquote mountain because there were no mountains in Babylon, so they built one, and it just sort of propagated itself across the ancient Near East in the form of ziggurats and other pyramidal structures. The gods lived at the top, on the top of the mountain, in their temple, above the clouds. Okay, so here's a few other things. Eden's location, yeah. The fake mountains we saw at Babel. Here's the other mountains we're going to handle at the beginning of next month's teaching. The sacrifice of Isaac by Abraham on a mountain. Who did he meet there? Angels. God meets Moses on Mount Sinai, Exodus 19 and Psalm, didn't get in there, 68. Balaam meets God on a mountain, that's Mount Peor. I'm going to inform you of that. I did my master's thesis on Balaam about 40 years ago. Genesis 6, sons of God came down on Mount Hermon, the Mount of Transfiguration. Mountains of the Lord in the eschaton become the chief of the mountains. I told you that. Okay, so when I say that the mountain of God, the cosmic mountain moves around, it's basically that God moves around to meet his people. The very important that you understand the concept that going up to meet God in the thunder and lightning storm that was on Sinai is kind of important. We're going to get into that just one more slide. But here at the bottom of my slide here, God moved to Sinai because that's where his people were, right? God goes, he goes with Israel in the form of a tabernacle and tent of assembly, right? He moves to Jerusalem with the building of the temple on the Temple Mount, Mount Zion. And then here, things that you'll just have to stick in your mind. Elijah goes to Arabia, which is where Mount Zion was, okay? I gave you the reference there. And then Paul goes to Arabia in Galatians. They went to meet God on the mountain. I can't remember the record about Elijah, but I think something about a cave. That's where the cave is, right? And he goes out there and God passes by, and he wasn't in the strong wind, but it was in the still small. I think that's the still small voice story. But the first one we're going to go over, this will end tonight's session, about the cosmic mountain and why angels are always on the top, because that's where the council met. That's why Lucifer wants to go back to the Mount of Assembly. What does the word assembly mean? It's where they assembled, where the council met, where God says, let us do this or let us do that. It's where Paul went when he was, harpazoed. He went to the throne room of God, and that's where all the angels were sitting, and he's talking to them. But anyway, Sinai is the quintessential thing. And I just gave a few notes here. We're not going to go through the record, but you'll know it if you've read it. If you haven't, please read it before next month. Exodus 19, God comes down. The word is descend. Fires on the mountain. That's verse 18. Dark clouds are there. There's a trumpet, and it blows two places. There's no guy or girl blowing it. Who's blowing it? Angels. You want to see angels? Look for trumpets. Okay, all right. And then Psalm 68, which is that's your assignment. Read Psalm 68, which is David's recapitulation of what happened at Sinai. He says, and there's some controversy on this, heaven came down. It's a pretty awesome psalm. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen because that's the end of it. I've only given you a piece of the puzzle. You guys can ask questions, or if you want to leave it there and say goodnight because it's late, you got to get ready for a hurricane, you guys in Texas, that's fine with me. Did you see it? Does it make sense biblically?
The whole thing about constructs is sinking in, I think. I mean, I sort of knew it, but the more I think about it and hear you talk about it and see it in the Bible and about what they thought, it's just starting to make sense.
It will open up the Psalms, Isaiah, Jeremiah. They will become your bestie friends. I say it all the time. I did not like to read the Old Testament, but since I've finally understood how the prophets thought and why they would say what they said in the way that they said it, it just makes so much more sense.
One thing, though, I mean, you brought up both points tonight. You said talked about the four corners of the earth, and you also talked about the circle of the earth.
Right.
How does the circle of the earth have four corners?
Well, I mean, it's a tent. I mean, the tent can be four corners, or it doesn't have to be. I don't know how their tents weren't like our tents, where you buy them from Walmart and they're four corners, but some of them were. I've seen some of the pictures of the Bedouin tents. I think we've had the discussion. And I may be wrong. I mean, it may not be that circle. It might be some other conceptualization that I just don't understand yet, Rob. But as I understand it, the four corners of the earth, where you could go, where you could walk, didn't include the sea that was beyond. I mean, everybody knew there was the sea. You could fall off the edge. That may be where the circle part comes in. The earth part had four corners, and that, in one sense, Rob, that is sort of like a figure. I mean, because it is four corners. I mean, is it four corners? Yeah, it's a tent, but is it a perfect tent? I don't think they thought it was a perfect tent. And that there's that one map that I used to always show from the 500 BC, where the Greeks show their conceptualization. I should stick that in here near the end. Their conceptualization of a circle with the ocean and only the center part showing like what we consider Europe and Asia and a little bit of North Africa. That's the farthest they had gone, and that's the biggest that the map was. But they thought there was that ocean all around that. And then there's the other map from the Babylonians that shows the exact same thing, with Babylon in the middle, the earth part, and then the ocean is all around it in a circle part. So that may be the circle that we're speaking of. I'll send you those. I'll send you that slide so you can look at it with me.
All right. And one more comment about flat earthers.
Yeah.
You spoke of them as if they were in the past. They're still very much alive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm a flat earther.
You can't get away from it, and in one sense, a lot of them could care less about the Bible, but they just want to make trouble, and they just want conspiracy theories. But biblically, that the Flammarion woodcut really kind of blows your mind. They really thought the Earth was flat. All right, folkies. Thank you for showing up, those of you. And this, there's a lot to work. I guess I'll give you a hint about the coming month. I'm calling the next one the finish off of this. We'll go through these records about the mountains and show you what I mean by poking through. But we're going to get to the eschaton, the end times, the end of days, where I call the teaching Jesus's cosmic kingship and the battle of Armageddon. And not to let the entire cat out of the bag, the word Armageddon is the mountain. Har is the Aramaic and Hebrew word for mountain. And I'm not going to let it's not in the valley of Megiddo, which you've been taught. That's a bad translation in the book of Revelation for Mageddon. There is no such word as Mageddon in the Hebrew. It's Har Moed. And I'll teach that from the Aramaic next month because I know Aramaic. And I know the book of Revelation was an original Aramaic book. And I know that John the Revelator is teaching about the Mount Moed, or Har Moed, not Har Mageddon. Has to do with that middle G is not a G, it's an ion. And that's a fun teaching. You're gonna love that one from the original Hebrew. And what it, how you get there is, who shall ascend to the Mount of Assembly, the Har Moed. It's the battle of Har Moed. So I'll leave you with that, and this should be in this teaching, Paul, when you get to it. So good night, you guys. Have a good night's sleep, and thanks for coming.